Hello everyone, it's Bella Malloy here, host of Seek Travel Ride, back with you for another midweek mini episode in our Cycle Shorts series. This series features a listener sharing what it was like on one day of their trip. In this week's episode, I have the pleasure of featuring listener Rieke Schmees from Germany, who took a massive trip from Germany to Morocco and then afterwards from Italy to Turkey. She did this solo, so without any further ado, let's listen to Rieke share what it was like for one day on this trip.
Hey Bella, so I am going to tell you about one encounter during my bike trip, which was probably the biggest turning point during my trip and also during my life. So I was hosted by a family in northern Morocco whose son I met in a small town while I was trying to find a place to sleep. And although we could hardly communicate, they were very welcoming, invited me into their home, set me on a table, brought me food, and even though they didn't have much, they repeatedly insisted that I eat more of their food. And as the evening unfolded and everyone got ready to sleep, I realized that they would be sleeping tightly together in a tiny room. And then I realized how much of a basic lifestyle they have. And in that moment, so many thoughts were going through my mind. I suddenly realized how different my life is compared to theirs, how privileged I am to be able to do such a trip with my bike, while most other people do not even have the opportunity to travel further than the next town. And it's purely because I was lucky to be born in a different country and others were not. Thoughts were running through my head about how stupid I would probably look with all that expensive bike gear, my brand clothes, and all the cost for my gear, and how far this money could probably last people in Morocco. And this feeling of shame was creeping up in me, and this uncomfortable feeling of privilege. In one moment, I felt so ashamed to be there. I felt like an empty shell with labels that I put on myself. I got so mad at myself and felt the urge to just throw away all my stuff. But instead of validating my discomfort, they sat next to me, all smiling at me, kept giving me food, and just genuinely seemed to enjoy feeding and taking care of me. And they neatly prepared my place to sleep and made sure I was covered with more blankets than everyone else in the room. And I remember realizing that most things I carry on my bike, I don't even need for survival. Even though you live quite minimalistic on a bike, I was still carrying so many things that were not necessary. And I thought to myself that even though I own all of this stuff, in moments like this, those things are useless. It doesn't matter what shoe brand you wear, how many gears your bike has, or how good the quality of your camping equipment is. When there are people out there who go above and beyond themselves to help out a stranger in a vulnerable situation like this, that is truly important. And knowing that they helped me out without wanting anything in return, although they probably needed it the most, was something that I have not experienced before. So this had to be the most valuable lesson in humanity I repeatedly learned during my bike trip.
Thank you so much, Rieke, for sharing this day of your journey. What an epic journey it must have been. And so many life lessons for you, I am sure, learnt along the way. And the one that you shared here, I can only imagine has been deeply meaningful and impactful for you. I'm sure that many of you who have just listened to this can probably also empathise exactly with what Rieke is talking about there. And it's something which personally I have been struck with myself. I've often thought how fortunate I have been to live in the lottery of life where I was born in a country where I do have access to an amazing passport that allows me to travel the world, that has given me so many opportunities to live a life where I can even travel at all. And yet, as is often the case, those with the least to offer somehow offer us the most. And that kindness, hospitality that they extend to a complete stranger just blows my mind. There was an episode which I recorded very early on in the podcast, Roxy and Tommy, a French and Polish couple who cycled all the way from the French Alps to Australia, and it struck them during their journey when they were invited in by a complete stranger to stay the night in their house that what they carried in their panniers, which to them wasn't so much, filled the room and was likely more than these people had themselves. It's definitely something which has given me a moment of pause myself, listening to these stories and hearing about how this is the world over. Rieke, I am certain it has changed your perspective of life for the better, and it sounds like you had an amazing, wonderful evening as well with this beautiful family. Thanks so much for sharing your story, and listeners, you will get to look forward to a full feature-length episode with Rieke to come, because I will soon be recording with her a podcast session to find out more details about this amazing adventure which she took. Now, I definitely want to say a big, massive thank you to all of you who have been following and supporting the show. I especially love it when listeners get in touch and let me know how much they are enjoying the podcast. I thought I'd share a voicemail which I received from listener Stephen Council. This is what he has to say about the show.
I love your podcast, Bella. It's so uplifting. Hi, my name's Stephen and I'm in New Zealand. I live in Queenstown. Just keep doing what you're doing because it really is beautiful. I love what you do with the podcast. It's kind of, I don't know, encouraging somehow and just in daily life. All right, enough of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for your beautiful, kind words and for supporting the podcast as well. I'm really glad that you are enjoying listening to the show. I'd like to also give a shout out to my Buy Me a Coffee supporters who have gone to my Buy Me a Coffee page and shown a small amount of financial support to the show. Thank you to Shiraz Yunus, who says, "Keep it going. Your podcast helps me dream of an adventure someday." Thank you so much, Shiraz. Here's to future adventures. Micheline Lee Campbell says, "Thanks, Bella, for everything you do. Love the pod, always a must listen for me." Thank you so much, Micheline. I'm really glad that you are enjoying tuning into the episode. Now, I've had a few donors who haven't left their names, but I did still want to acknowledge that I have received your beautiful messages here. It's quite funny, Buy Me a Coffee just calls you someone. So here are some messages from someone's. First one, love the podcast. It's a perfect companion for those long, tough weekend training rides and runs, and a constant reminder that the work can be its own reward. Another someone says, "Hi Bella, I absolutely love your podcast. It ranks way up there with the best. Keep up the good work." Another someone says, "I really enjoy your podcasts. Thank you." And finally, here's a message from Laurel who says, "Love the show, especially solo women adventures." Thank you, Laurel, and thank you to everyone who supports the show. On the topic of solo female adventurers, I am extremely proud to say that with the release of last week's episode, Tara Weir, Tara was the 50th woman who I have featured on the show and the 34th solo female traveller. It is an absolute privilege to share the stories of these inspiring women to you all each and every week. Now, if you would like to support Seek Travel Ride, you can do so quite easily. All you need to do is click on the Buy Me a Coffee link in your show notes through your podcast player app. Click on that link and you can just put through a small financial donation of support to help keep my microphone on and to help produce these episodes for you each and every week. Until the next episode, my name's Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.